What's going on, guys? It's Cal here from Buffalo SportsCenter, and today we're going to be talking about the Buffalo Sabres, but more specifically some of the rumors that have been going on lately. Now, the Sabres just returned to training camp. They just started it this week, and the preseason starts right around the corner. It's going to be a fun year for the Sabres, but let's hop right in. First up, Trevor Zegras. Now, this one came out of absolutely nowhere. I don't think anyone expected Trevor Zegras to really even get moved. But all of a sudden, a tweet comes out, and I'll read it in 1 second, that kind of shocked everyone in Anaheim and everyone in Buffalo. So here was the tweet. It says, "The Ducks are being choosy with Zegras. They want to break it. I heard there is a team that is looking that way, and it's the Buffalo Sabres. The Sabres have to make the playoffs this year, and you solve the problem by bringing in Zegras." Now, that is what the journalism told JIC. Now, first things first, let's break that quote down a little bit, because first things, it looks like the Ducks may want to move Zegras. Again, this is a pretty reliable source that dropped this news on Twitter. They have a lot of followers. It's not, this is nothing to, brush off and ignore. So potentially Zegras wants to get moved. Then we get into the Sabres being pretty much the only team looking that way. Interesting that the Sabres get brought up here. They don't really need another forward. I think that's the strongest part on their team. Then the quote moves on to say the Sabres have to make the playoffs this year. I don't know if the Sabres have to make the playoffs, but I know the Sabres definitely want to make the playoffs. Every team in the league wants to make the playoffs. I feel like this is the year for the Sabres, but to say they have to make the playoffs like they've missed, the last few years, I don't know. That's interesting to me. And then you solve the problem by bringing in Zegras. I don't know if Zegras necessarily makes the Sabres that much more of a playoff contender. He's a great player. He's young. I mean, he could really be, a franchise piece for a team. But to say he solves the Sabres' problem, it's very interesting there. I think the Sabres, their main problem is still probably defense. They still, at the time of this recording, have not re-signed Dahlin or Owen Power, although both of those have been progressing pretty fast over the last week. But with that being said, I think defense is still probably your weakest position. And then goalie is pretty weak too, because Devin Levi, like I keep saying on this channel, he's unproven. I love what he has to bring to offer, but he's still so unproven. He hasn't really solidified himself as the franchise goalie yet, which I think he will, but he hasn't yet. And your backups, you're running a lot of guys, but to be fair, your backup goaltender situation is a concern. And UPL right now is probably leading that race. Eric Comrie too, but they both, last season did not look that great. Let's talk more about Zegras, though. In his career, he has played 180 NHL games, 3 seasons, 49 goals, 90 assists, totaling 139 points. Again, he's an offensive weapon. Last year, he had 81 games played, 32 goals, 42 assists, 65 points. You look at those stats right there, and it's clear that Trevor Zegras, like I said earlier, can be a franchise piece for a team. He is a scorer. He is fun to watch. Of course, he does, those Michigan goals, those, fancy goals that get on SportsCenter top 10. The only minus for Trevor Zegras was his plus minus. It was pretty bad throughout his career, and last year it was no better. Again, he played for the Anaheim Ducks. The Ducks were, one of the worst teams for a while. So it does make sense, playing on that team, your plus minus by default is going to be bad. So I get it, but definitely something to look at there. And Trevor Zegras, he's not the best defender, and I know the Sabres kind of have a core with their forwards already, and they have so many prospects that this move would really be interesting. A trade would probably have to sign, a first-round pick, at least 2 prospects, and then a young guy on the team. I'm not saying these guys, but maybe like a JJ Peterka, a Jack Quinn. It just might be too much. I don't know, but if we could get Trevor Zegras for cheap, I don't see why not. He is an RFA. You'd have to sign him. Probably big money, and I don't think Kevin Adams is going to pay him more than a Tage Thompson or Dylan Cousins, because he said it over and over again. He wants to reward the guys who were here, so those guys are going to be the ones getting paid the most. But who knows? This came out of nowhere, so maybe we'll see a massive contract. We'll see what happens. Now let's transition into the second rumor I wanted to talk about in this video, Patrick Kane. Patrick Kane, I mean, for the last 5 seasons, we've been hearing about it, right? Will Patrick Kane return home to Buffalo? He's obviously from Buffalo. His whole career, He was in Chicago. Last season he went to the New York Rangers. Looked pretty good, but we know what Patrick Kane can do when he's healthy. He's getting old, I understand. He was banged up a little bit, but apparently he's going through some rehab to get that injury fixed up, and he's looking good. So here is the tweet from Darren Dreger that started this whole thing a couple days ago. He said, Patrick Kane continues to rehab from his hip surgery. He's been doing so in the Toronto area since July and requires at least another month. We know Buffalo has interest. He can help a lot of teams when healthy. I don't think anything in that statement is false. He definitely needs a little more time to rehab from that injury. Buffalo was kind of interested last season too, before the Rangers had him, but it didn't really make sense for the Sabres to get him. This year it could, and of course Patrick Kane, when healthy, could help a lot of teams. I do agree with that. With that being said, again, another forward. Does Buffalo really need another forward? Probably not. Patrick Kane struggles defensively, would probably not mesh well with the team. The one big thing about Patrick Kane, though, is he has playoff and Stanley Cup experience, and that's something the Sabres drastically lacked last season, and I think that's a main reason why they weren't able to get in the playoffs last year. Just didn't have that experience in some of those big-time games. They just didn't have the guys that were ready for those situations. This year, they do have a little more experience. They bring in Eric Johnson, who has already been helping Dahlin immensely with recovery and all that too. So a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that helps out our guys. You look at Patrick Kane here, though. A lot of fans are split on this. His career, he's got 451 goals, 786 assists, totaling 1,237 points. He's an offensive weapon. I mean, won multiple Stanley Cups. The guy, he can do it all out there, but again, he's getting older, getting slower. I don't know if it would be the right move for the Sabres. Like I mentioned, he went to the Rangers last year. In the playoffs, he had 1 goal and 5 assists in 7 playoff games, so that is not bad. That shows you he can still do it on a good team. But this is an interesting rumor for me. I don't really see this happening again, kind of like the Zegras one. I think I'd give Zegras maybe a 5% chance to happen. Patrick Kane maybe a 10% chance. I just don't think we need another forward, and if we do, it would mainly be a trade or something to pawn off some of our prospects, because to be honest, we have too many prospects now, which is never a bad thing, but a lot of the guys that are in our system are not going to see NHL ice. So we'll see what the Sabres decide to do here, but those are just 2 rumors that popped up in the last few days that kind of came out of nowhere, especially Zegras. So let me know what you guys think in the comments if you're still watching this. Do you want Zegras? Do you want Patrick Kane? Do you want both? Do you want neither? Let me know in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe, like the video, and I will see you guys next time, maybe with an update for this situation. Maybe they pull the trigger on one of these. Maybe they don't, but peace out, guys.